there should be a driver committee that votes on the people that are entering these races.
You think the development system's broke? I feel like it's broke.
The NASCAR that I knew, it doesn't exist anymore. That's hard for me to believe. I got out and I went, I didn't appreciate what Tony had done. He walked in there, opened the front door, fired his 12-gauge shotgun out the front door to wake us all up.
Welcome to Kevin Harvick's Happy Hour, presented by Echo Park Automotive and NASCAR on Fox. And this week, we've got my business partner and good friend, Dale Jr. in the chair. And man, I can't tell you how much I appreciate you taking the time to come down here and sit in the chair, mainly because I really can't hear on Zoom. That's really my excuse for most interviews, but it's always more fun when you have somebody sitting in the chair. So thanks for taking the time. Massive week for us with the Cars Tour. You know, I think you probably thought I was crazy when I first started talking about this with everything that we had happening, the possibilities of putting late model stocks on FS1. What do you think this means to the series and the drivers and everything that we've worked towards to this point?
It's exciting for you and me to feel like that we're doing some of the things we had promised the competitors in terms of growing the series and trying to take the series to new places. And you know, you have this, incredible relationship with Fox that's produced an opportunity. And my favorite part about it probably is hearing from the drivers saying that they're really excited about it. It's hard to get those guys to admit when they're excited about something. And you can boost the purse, you can change this, change that, and you might hear some grumblings of happiness, but they're thrilled to have the opportunity to race on FS1 and at Wilkesboro in front of the industry on All-Star Weekend. We've been on this race weekend for a couple of years now, so it's just a lot of great momentum for the tour and trying to continue like me and you've been trying to do. We're trying to make it better every year, and you came with a great idea, and it's pretty cool that it's a reality.
So we're going to be in the booth with Eric, and I think for me to be up there calling the race with you is something that I don't know that I ever thought we would be able to do together, because I work for Fox, you work for Amazon, TNT, NBC before. It's hard to, and I know you've been in the Fox booth with the guys at Talladega before, but to me that's going to be a lot of fun because I feel like I've gotten to know the competitors better. I always try to walk around the garage when we're practicing, say hi to the guys. But you have this deep tie to late model stock racing. How did all of this start? I know the backstory, but I want everybody to hear the backstory of how the opportunity came to buy the series.
Well, I'll say this. Me and you did a little TV work back at Sonoma probably around 2003.
Well, but that was just to mess with Myers.
I know, but we had fun, and that'll live forever.
It will.
I raced, you came from a straight rail offset car on the, like a pro or super late model on the West Coast. And the late model stock car is kind of similar to a truck or an Xfinity car chassis in terms of there's no offset in the chassis, and it's really got a very specific footprint in North America, basically in the Carolinas and little Tennessee and little South Carolina, a lot of Virginia. But that's kind of where the car has lived and existed for as long as I've been around. And we have raced, I've fielded a car in this tour for over a decade with Josh Berry and different drivers. We've fielded multiple cars in this tour forever. And Jack was a fella that owned the tour for a while and was thinking about bringing in partners or selling the tour. He wanted it to kind of live on. He was thinking about getting out or scaling back his involvement. And actually at the race at North Wilkesboro, when we brought Wilkesboro back in 2022 and had an event there with the Cars Tour and the Modifieds. we started conversations about how to keep the tour going, who should buy it, who should invest in it, who could do it. And I was like, well, I'll be a partner. I wasn't ready to run a series. I'd never done that before in my life. But
we might still not be ready for that.
Right.
But here we are.
You know, me and Jeff Burton drove late model stocks at South Boston growing up. And we were in the booth together. And I was like, hey, I'm thinking about doing this thing. I'm just trying to, Burton's the kind of guy, as you know, you can just tell him things that you're thinking about doing and he'll tell you whether it's a good or a bad idea, right? Yeah. And I didn't expect really for him to want to get involved in it, but he said, hey, I might want to do that. And then he thought, we should talk to Kevin. I was like, you think Kevin will do this? And he's like, yeah, let's talk to Kevin. So we sat down and talked to you. You're like, I'm in. And I think we should talk to Justin Marks.
Yep.
And so it just kind of like grew into this really cool group of guys that all have kind of similar motives, but different ways of looking at things. And that's how we ended up buying the tour and taking it over and trying to help grow it and keep it strong.
And I think that's been probably my favorite part is we sit in that room and we all look at it from a totally different perspective, but we have this respect for each other that it's like, okay, that's his lane. Yeah. Let him run down that lane. I might disagree with this or that, but nobody ever takes it personal because I think that passion for grassroots racing is something that we all believe in. Yeah. And in my opinion, I think that there's a massive hole in the grassroots asphalt racing piece of the puzzle. And really, I think we've seen that over the last year when we've taken some stuff out west. We've seen the growth with the Cars Tour. I think Flow has been a big part of helping us grow the tour with their involvement, whether it be with the purses or just being on Flow. And really the competitors, in my opinion, have benefited from when you put something on social media or you talk about it on your podcast or we talk about it here, they see all this exposure. And now it's been this consistent passion and involvement that we've been at the track. Obviously you've fielded cars, we fielded a car. But I think that having that consistency from the competitors, it's like, hey, Butterbean's over here winning ARCA races. Carson's, Waffles in Dale's Xfinity car. We've got Connor Zilic has come through here, won races and immediately left because they realized if you can win here, you can win anywhere. And now it seems like the rest of the industry is noticing that with the opportunities that some of these guys are getting. Do you feel that way?
I do. I think that, and I'm biased obviously, but I feel like the Cars Tour provides a driver the best opportunity to really learn racecraft. Yeah. We get a lot of fast race car drivers that come in there and don't know how to finish races and don't know how to put together complete races. There's some, there's some nights where it's rough and a lot of calamity and things to dodge and wreck avoidance, but truly getting down in the corner and racing somebody side by side and getting out the other end successfully, that's something I think that guys and girls can come into our tour and learn. And if you can be competitive and over the course of a season put together really solid races, you are ready to get into the truck or Xfinity car and go out there and compete without making mistakes or getting yourself or other competitors in real big trouble because you've been in so many tight, hard battles in the Cars Tour week in and week out. So, yeah, I feel like that we provide a unique product for young drivers to come in and really hone their craft and truly get ready for that next step. Yeah,
and I feel like right now, and I think Butterbean has proved that this year. I mean, he's gone right into ARCA National and just started winning races and did it again last weekend at Kansas. But who in your opinion is the next one? Like, who do you think in our tour is the next one that could possibly come out of there? Because I think there's a few of them. And I really think that when you go back and you look at Josh Berry, I don't think you have to be 16 years old anymore. I think that him being a little older now, and now you've kind of walked him through the whole process and helped him along the way. And he's proven now he's a winner on the Cup side. Yep. And he just grounded out. Where do you feel like the age, I guess not just our tour specific, I don't want to put you on the spot there. Where do you think the whole age thing kind of falls into what we do now that we've seen Josh have all that success? And is it necessary that they're 16, 17, 18 years old? Corey Haim's 22. Yeah. So what's your opinion on that?
Well, I feel like that we've all learned that each driver's different. Mm-hmm. But you look at William Byron, Joey Logano, those guys got kind of thrown into the Cup level at a very young age, and fortunate enough for them, there was enough people in the industry to believe in them over the course of the time that it took them to find their way, right? And a lot, I think a lot of drivers risk not developing into their true potential because they rush to get there.
Yeah.
And they don't have quite enough people at that level, at the Cup level, to truly believe in them and stay with them to get to that point. I mean, Joey could easily not be a 3-time Cup champion.
Very easily.
Right?
Yeah.
And there's a lot of value, I think, in being patient. You know, the only problem is that it's a money game, right? And it's all, for almost everyone, it's pay to play. And if you got the money, you got to go, right? The finances that are behind the driver often dictate the speed in which they move through the ranks, and sometimes they're not able to take the time that they need. But I feel like that you could spend. I always felt this way. You could spend at least 2 years in each level, like 2 years in the car store, 2 years in the trucks, 2 years in Xfinity, to truly get to where you need to be before you get to the Cup level. But sometimes drivers just don't have that luxury because of how much of the big machine behind them is pushing them forward. Maybe they don't have the time to be able to wait. But
you think it's broke? I mean, do you think the development system's broke?
Well,
I feel like it's broke, and I feel like I look at iRacing. I had an interesting conversation with Joey from NASCAR about a point system, kind of like iRacing. If you don't have enough points at this level, you can't go to this level.
Yeah.
If you don't have enough points at this level, and I feel like that if we made that Cup piece of it harder to get to, it would make it more prestigious, but it would also get more guys the opportunity to go there that have the right path. Do we need to make some sort of system like that?
I've thought about that, especially over the last several months, a lot. And I was in a situation with Landon Castle and Danica, a few other drivers, where I felt like they were qualified to go race in the Xfinity race at Daytona, but NASCAR felt like they needed to race in the ARCA series. We were going to run Josh somewhere, but in an Xfinity car at a 1.5 mile track, but NASCAR required us to run him in a truck somewhere before then. So that was like a $25,000 expense that we really didn't have, or Josh didn't have in his business model, and we really didn't want to spend that money at the time with Landon Castle. We felt like he didn't need to run that ARCA race. I mean, it was a great experience for him, but there was a time what I'm trying to say is there was a time when there was a bit of a system, and you had to have this many starts here, or you had to run the half mile before you got to the mile, before you got to, there was this process that was clunky and not really perfect. Honestly, the best scenario might be a bit of a driver's committee at the Cup level. There should be a driver committee that votes on the people that are entering these races.
Yeah.
When you went to Darlington, you had to have a rookie orientation as a driver. Even AJ Foyt had to go through that to be accepted. And the drivers were the ones sitting and watching that practice and saying, this guy's ready, this guy is not ready.
Right.
And so maybe at each level, there's a group of 3 or 4 drivers that are the ones that determine if somebody is eligible or should be eligible for whatever race. Because I feel like there are those weird cases where you get a driver who's absolutely qualified, but they haven't checked the boxes. And do you want to force that driver through that pipeline, which he may not take? So he may just avoid the whole thing altogether.
Yeah.
You don't want to do that. So,
but I feel like those guys stick out like a sore thumb. Like when you look at you look at a Connor Zilic or somebody along that line. You can noticeably see the guys that are ready.
Exceptions, right? Yeah. And so then that would be where the committee could work, because they could see that, right? Yeah. You as a driver would be able to go, I'm good with Connor racing here.
Yeah.
But maybe not the other guy. that you don't think has, needs to go do something else for a little while.
Yeah.
And that's just a honest, and it's hard, it's an honest truth that people have to face. If somebody says, look, man, you need more time. I know a driver who's got 2 ARCA starts that's already thinking about running a truck. And I'm like, no, don't do that.
Yeah.
Get a couple more starts in ARCA before you try to go run a truck race and make a fool of yourself.
Yeah, it's definitely a tough scenario, but I feel like if it was, you look at F1, and we got into this with Will Buxton last week about the super license, and it seems a little bit, it's definitely skewed towards European racing and F4, F3, F2 there, and you can gather super license points here, but the IndyCar champion not being eligible, especially now that Cadillac and the F1 team are going to be housed in America. And really, it's almost impossible to look at any of those guys because they're not even eligible.
Right. Yeah. That's too strict of a policy.
It blows my mind that if you really want it to be this international piece of the puzzle, but I think that even the open wheel piece of the puzzle is broken a little bit. But I definitely think that we could do a better job in just saying, hey, here's the path. Now, if there's an exception, we might be able to give somebody a waiver that is just stands out above the rest that could be more rapidly moved along. But I feel like Cup is so prestigious, and I feel like we've taken some of the prestigiousness of everything that we do away from each level because you can buy your way
easier to get there.
So it's an interesting conversation, and you deal with it a lot with your Xfinity teams. You have a lot of guys and gals that have come through that program. Where do you think the Xfinity series is in this whole puzzle as far as trucks, Xfinity? Yeah. Is it better to go to trucks? Is it good to go to Xfinity? I don't really know because the new Cup car is so different.
Yeah. Well, that is, I believe that the parts and pieces that we're all using to race trucks or Xfinity are a bit obsolete, and I wish they weren't. I wish there were companies out there still making these parts and wanting to make them so that when the Cup car moved away from the rear end housing and the suspension and types of things, steering boxes and all the stuff that we currently run, it's put things in question in terms of what's the future physically of the Xfinity car. What does it look like in 5 years? And there's some rumors that's going to change. And
that's because of the steering boxes and all this stuff
old stuff.
It's
old.
It doesn't make sense because now you don't have the Cup cars with everything flowing down with the parts and pieces to make the Xfinity cars more functional.
That's right. And there's really not anybody currently making a lot of the stuff. Transmissions are getting harder to find, even for short trackers. We're all running old transmission. Everybody's running pretty much kind of same stuff, and even the short track guys at the local level are having a hard time finding parts and pieces, steering boxes, and stuff like that. So it's a bit of everything's kind of in a bit of a spin right now.
Yeah.
But I believe that the Xfinity Series has to find a bit of an identity, and I think NASCAR is trying to figure out what that is. Is it hybrid? Is it there's some. They aren't making this electric car for fun. There's a purpose behind that.
Don't get me started on that.
I know. Well, like it or not, I'm not entirely in love with it, but they're not doing that just to kid and play around. There's a real possibility that could be a series at some point.
Yeah.
And something that NASCAR wants to get behind and push. And if the other thing too is that the business model in the Xfinity Series has worked really well, but as the charter system changes in the Cup Series and the dollars that you need from corporate America to race in the Cup Series change, it conflicts with the business model at the Xfinity level a little bit. And so there's some, if the Cup Series, if you could ever get to where you're competitive in the Cup Series at $5 to $10 million, then that's going to make it difficult to make the dollars work in the Xfinity
same price.
Series. Yes, it really
gets into that same price. But we've seen you guys dip your toe in. I mean, you had a great experience at Daytona. That looked like fun,
tons of fun.
From your enthusiasm and everything that
it was
came
tons
with
of fun, but it was It wasn't the real deal, right? I mean,
Yeah.
it was like we're an open team. We did buy a car, like that we didn't borrow a car. We bought a car from. You have to go to NASCAR, buy the car, and if we're going to run one race, they have to then buy it back from us, and it goes back into their inventory. And so parts of it were genuinely real. The risk and the financial risk was real.
Mm-hmm.
Putting all the people together and getting the crew together was real. It wasn't, we did have a lot of help from Hendrick Motorsports and a lot of support there, but there were some real levers that I had to pull or we had to pull. So it felt genuine. And I that's why I think I enjoyed it so much. It wasn't like someone, in this case, Rick Hendrick just put a car on the grid for me and said, here, pretend to be an owner for a weekend. But it did open my eyes to how challenging that landscape is.
Yeah.
Whew. And
it is so challenging.
Yeah, it is.
And the good teams have risen back to where they were before this car with the old car, right? Everybody said this was going to make it more even, but the good teams have still risen to the top.
But just the financial challenges too.
Yeah.
And parts and pieces and people and carbon fiber and everything. We were out there running around. I'm like, we had a little damage in our race, in the qualifying race, in our duel. We had a little damage, and I'm sitting there sweating whether we can repair that front splitter or whether we're going to have to pay for a new one.
Yeah.
And so luckily we were, NASCAR was like, hey, it's a scratch, do a little Bondo here, fix it up, you'll be good to go. But I'm sitting there going, wow, man, if I had to replace that, that's a big chunk of money that we weren't really budgeting for. And all that just kind of adds up, ticky-tack stuff throughout the weekend. And that's just one race.
That's been my favorite part of the ownership group is you are so efficient and know what everything costs.
Tight.
You are the tightest. You are definitely the biggest tightwadded in the group for sure. And I love that because the rest of us are pretty ambitious, and you're always like, well, what's this going to cost? And I think that is fantastic.
Got to have one of those guys.
You have to have one of those guys.
You wouldn't think it would be me.
And I love that. I love that part about what you do. And I think, it'd be, in my opinion, the grid would be better if there was a car in the Cup Series that said Junior Motorsports on it.
I feel the same way as you do.
Yeah.
I said I've voiced this opinion to the folks that matter, and it's not a harsh critique, but I still have a disbelief that we are in a place. I have been around long enough to remember that if you and I just woke up one day and said, man, we're going to enter a Cup car in any race we want, we can go find us a car, find us a driver, get all the parts and go do it, right? Now there's some couple hoops to license. You got to get a license and got to enter the car, pay the money, the entry fee, all that good stuff. But it was pretty much, understandable challenge. Yeah. But today, to get just out there and compete, you need that $50 million charter, and that charter is going to be $100 million and $150 million and $200 million. It's going to go to the moon over the next several years.
That's a good time to buy it right now.
It was a good time to buy it 10 years ago. Yeah. I regret that I didn't. Yeah. But it's become this place where only people with that kind of money can play.
Yeah.
And the NASCAR that I knew in terms of, just being able to field a car and go race doesn't exist anymore. Yeah. And that's just hard for me to that's hard for me to not really, that's hard for me to just believe that we're in that, for me to go run an open car isn't realistic. It's not realistic for anybody to do it every single week. But while that is tough for me to stomach, it is incredibly great for the current people that are involved in the sport. Great for NASCAR, great for the France family, great for the owners and teams that have those charters that are appreciating year after year, hour after hour. They're just going up. But for somebody who's trying to get in, you can't play unless you got a big entity behind you, somebody with real cash.
Well, I think you could bring a lot to the table. I mean, the effort that you and Kelly and your group put into the sport, and you guys you're always out there, and your group is always out there, and the impact that it would have on Cup racing would be through the roof. But there are a lot of other pieces that fall into that puzzle.
I'll be honest with you. I think about that, and I had a real good opportunity years ago to get in as a cup owner. I could have, I should have, or there's that argument out there. But when we go to a car store race, or if I sit down and buckle down and work on the car store for a day, and spend real time going over things with Kip or talking to you, I'm just as happy and rewarded, right? And so sometimes I think to myself, man, maybe all that cup level stuff is in the rearview mirror. You know, I enjoy broadcasting, and what I'm thankful to be able to get back into the booth and do a little bit of that this year, because as you know, it's just a ton of fun.
It is.
But I love being able to put all the effort into the cars tour, Junior Motorsports, and all the other pieces and things we're doing.
Yeah.
And
because it is a 24/7 job. If you're going to be a good cup owner, it's a 24/7 job.
All the things that I do that I'm passionate about that I would probably have to put to the side, right? I mean, if you went back to driving,
oh my gosh,
tomorrow, think of all the things you'd have to say, I can't do those things anymore that I've just started doing, enjoying.
It's commitment.
Yeah.
It's a full commitment. Yeah. Well, let's talk about the Amazon piece of it, getting started here. Mm-hmm. You guys have your first race coming up at the Coca-Cola 600. What's that process been like, getting ready to get back into the booth? You took a year off.
Yeah.
And so what's the process been like getting ready?
I didn't want to take a year off, but it just didn't work out. And so I've missed it. I've missed it a lot. And we had this past weekend, you guys were in Kansas, and we were at the NASCAR building using your feed to do a rehearsal of sorts, just practice and play with Adam and Letard and our, some of our people with Amazon. I was really nervous because, like anything, if you don't do it every day and you're not in there in the grind, you can kind of, it's like golf. If you don't swing a club all the time, you might not be as good next time you try to go out and do it. But we had a little practice run, felt awesome. It reminded me, like every time I get back in the booth, of how fun it is and how lucky I am to be able to do it. And so my excitement level's through the roof. Honestly, I'm pumped. Honestly, we got done with that rehearsal. All of us with our Amazon bosses and everybody on this text, and we're texting back and forth. And I said, there's just one problem, that we only get to do this 5 weeks.
Right.
I was like, there's just not enough pie for everybody, but it'd be awesome to have a good chunk of the season. But I'm gonna run through. I'm gonna do July with Amazon, or June with Amazon, and July with TNT. 10 race stretch, and I'll probably be, it'll probably be hard to stop when NBC picks it up. But that's where we are, and I'm thrilled to just have the chance. I'm just thankful to be able to do it a little bit.
So you're going to go up there for the longest race of the season. What is?
I've never done the 600.
What does Dale Jr. look like in the booth? Are you a guy that has to eat it halfway? Do you stand? Do you sit?
Yeah.
What do you do?
I'm pretty animated and moving a lot.
Okay.
I wonder sometimes if it's annoying to Letard, because I sit up, stand up, sit down, sit up, stand. I'm moving all the time.
Oh, you should come in our booth.
Yeah.
You want to talk about sit up, stand down, turn? Oh my God,
Clint?
Yeah, Clint's all over the place.
Is he? Yeah. I'm kind of the same way, and I just, I don't know. I'm just so, honestly, I sit at home and watch races. I enjoy them.
Yeah.
If I'm at a racetrack in person, I enjoy that experience, but I don't know what it is about being in the booth is like the most fun I can have watching a race. And, you don't have a choice but to really be in it. Yeah. Watching everything going on. And as a person with that kind of perspective from the booth, you see the battle that's happening on the television that everyone else is watching, but you also see everything else going on in the rest of the field.
Yes.
And there you can't, it's so much happening, and you can only put one thing on the screen. And it's like it's an adrenaline rush. It really is. Live TV is, first quick pop on air is pretty scary.
Makes your heart race.
Yeah. 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 And there's wins and losses up there. I don't have to worry. I don't have to, when we raced and we had a bad day, we had to talk to the media about it and try to tell everybody how we're going to do better. Yeah. We don't do that anymore.
No.
But we do come out of the booth and go, that was a great show.
Yeah.
Such a great show. You know, I did this wrong. I can do this better. I need to prep better.
Don't call Kyle Larson Kyle Busch.
No.
Did you see Boyer
Yes,
this weekend?
I did.
Oh,
Yeah.
that was fantastic. Mike Joy and I were beside ourselves.
Yeah.
It was hysterical.
Y'all's reaction was real. I saw that. It was pretty fun. Clint, I was watching production and Clint's sitting on the pit road. Y'all weren't on air yet, and he's sitting there writing his notes. And that's the part that a lot of people don't see.
Yeah.
Is you guys, you know, how much y'all and our team, how much work goes on behind the scenes.
So much behind the scenes.
You're studying and thinking and note taking all the way up until the moment the camera turns on.
Yes.
And you it's fun. It's a fun challenge. You're chasing having a great show.
And you don't want to do bad. You're
That's what I
representing
mean.
the sport.
Yeah.
You're representing the competitors. You know 99% of the guys in the garage, and you want them to leave.
Yeah.
Some of them might be mad about being honest or something you say, but you want to tell the story correctly.
Yeah. I find that you never have somebody told me this is great advice. They say it's never as good as it felt, but it's never as bad as it felt either.
Yeah.
And I like trying to always chase the perfect show or the perfect segment or the perfect comment, knowing I'll never probably be that happy with everything I do. But I'm competitive, and I chase that the same way I tried to chase a car that turned in the middle when I was driving race cars. You know,
it's just a different team.
Yeah,
it really is. It's a different team of people doing different things. So we have our last race this weekend, All-Star race. Obviously, you've been a big part of North Wilkesboro, and everything that's happened there kind of kicked it off with, like you said, with the late model stocks and the revival of the whole track. You've been, you know, one of the guys behind that mission to see what it is today. And, you know, we've got the All-Star race, and I'm of the opinion that North Wilkesboro should be a points race. I think we need 37th race, and we need to eliminate the All-Star race and honor our guys that are All-Stars in some other way, shape, or form. But my opinion is North Wilkesboro would be a better race if it had all the cars on the track and we just made it a points race. What do you think?
Yeah. You could get me to buy into the idea of somehow taking the Clash and the All-Star race and mashing it into one event, right? And
I like that.
Maybe to kick our season off, we have an All-Star event at the start of the year.
Yep.
If it meant Wilkesboro got the points race it needs, a 400-lapper. Because I do think the racetrack really raced better than people probably remember. Yeah. I know everybody probably just remembers Logano dominating this race last year, but the track was widened out. They chased it all the way to the fence in turn 1 and 2.
Yep.
Turns 3 and 4 had multiple grooves as well. If you needed to get out of the bottom, you could still make time in the middle and the top of the racetrack. And I think that's just going to continue to improve as the racetrack ages over time. And I do believe things go in circles. Everything that was old is new again, and everything that's out of style comes back in style.
Yeah.
We will have a short track package that we all love one day. It will happen. And somehow, some way, they'll stumble into something that actually is awesome. And so I think, that bodes well for Wilkesboro as well. To one day be a track that puts on an incredible product like we had, just not only 8 or 10 years ago on the short track level. I remember coming out of the Martinsville race where Denny and Chase got into it.
Right.
I come out of that race and I said, man, if we could bottle this up every week, we'd be on top of the world, because I felt so my adrenaline was running leaving that racetrack after seeing that race and thinking, man, the drama and the excitement and how that all played out. And it kept, Martinsville was delivering there every single week or every single race till the next gen. And so, but I think they'll figure it out with this car. And I think that's why we need to kind of keep pushing Wilkesboro and all these other tracks and trying to keep short tracks on the schedule.
Yeah. And it's so interesting because the short track stuff was really good.
Yeah.
With the old car.
Now it's a mile and a half.
And now it's a mile and a half with the new car.
Yeah.
And, we go to Kansas and
maybe
Texas.
We should have. Remember when the COT came in and they ran like 8 or 10 COT races that one year and had a little blend.
Split it up.
Yeah, they did.
That's one thing I thought about with the
they got rid of all the
All-Star race was maybe we just need to have all the Cup drivers go to an Xfinity team and we'll just have a vintage race.
There you go. Maybe that's what happens to the Xfinity program is it turns into the short track package.
Yeah. I mean, you never know what really works, but I think, it's really interesting to see where the short track package has evolved to, because I don't think anybody really thought it would be where it's at. I think the tire has helped it a lot. I think maybe if they put that motor in that you had in that truck of Cletus's,
there you go,
more horsepower,
big power. That would definitely make it harder to drive. It'd be all over the place.
Was that the most horsepower of anything you've ever driven in your life?
Absolutely. Yeah, no question. That thing, so I had a Camaro with a line lock, and so I kind of knew what I was doing or getting myself into, but I had no idea what the acceleration was going to feel like when I let off that button and that thing took off. It was like, you see those little things where the people are on them, they're strapped down on this big bungee cord and they turn them loose and they fly up into the sky. That's what it felt like. Like I just shot forward like an amusement park, and it made me lightheaded, and
that's unbelievable.
It really, I wasn't ready. My body was not ready for it. And that's what was, they were messing with me because I didn't run full throttle that first run. And I was like, all right.
You ran it twice?
Yeah.
Okay.
I got back in it and I was like, they were giving me, crap about lifting. And I was like, well, this back straightaway apron's bumpy. There's a grate down there that I don't want to run over at 140 miles an hour. And I said, all right. I'm going to run it wide open. Let me back in it. And they were like, okay, we're going to run it again. And so we had to cool it down, get it all back ready to go again. And I was like, I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, I don't care what's happening. I'm running it wide open. They're not going to give me
I am not going to look like a wuss here.
Nope, I'm running wide open. I don't care if I wad this thing up. And so the next time I ran it wide open and I got out and I went, and this was the week that I think Tony Stewart had won.
Oh, the NHRA race,
the 4 wide deal. I got out and I went, in like 2 years, Tony Stewart has become a competitive,
winner.
Successful, and he goes twice as fast as this. I didn't appreciate what Tony had done as much as I did after I drove that truck. I was like, that was fast. I can't imagine what your body goes through to go twice as fast in an 8th mile. I can't imagine what that must feel like.
Yeah.
And how they go up there and get on the line and they do it over and over all weekend long.
I would assume that you just become...
Your body has to come
accustomed to it. Yeah. Because it's definitely, hearing you talk about that, I didn't really think about everything that Tony had to go through.
I love Tony Stewart. He's awesome. We all know that he kicks ass. But dang, I honestly feel like I really didn't put his NHRA career anywhere near the other things that he's done in racing. But now I got to say that I put it near the top, if not at the top.
Looks so easy from the outside in.
Yeah, because I'm like, what he had to go through and what he had to learn and be willing to learn, right? Willing to put himself through that. Holy moly.
Well, he's got a pretty strict coach. Leah, she drops the hammer on Tony, and she is not.
He's gotten in shape.
Oh, yeah. Well, I don't know about that.
I do.
I think he's lost some weight.
He has lost some weight.
I don't know that he's got in shape. So he's changing diapers, losing weight, all the stuff that.
I remember back in the day flying home with him one time. I don't know what I was in between planes or something. And I hopped on the plane and he had like a extra large Happy Meal. I was like, dang. Like, I ain't doing it right.
Yeah. Tony was never shy about eating, and it never was very good. He did everything his own way.
We just ran a race, and he's like, I'm chowing down.
Yeah, I'm going to have a Happy Meal.
Dang, I'm jealous.
It probably had cheese and ketchup on it, like our kids would eat. Yeah. All right, last question. So we ask everybody on the show, what was your first car that you drove on the highway?
Ever. My first car was a black and silver 1988 S10 pickup truck with the Tahoe package. I loved it because it had the seek button on the radio. Radio's back in.
The what?
A seek button.
Oh, seek button. Yeah.
Remember, like right before 1988, like around 85, 86, radio, you had to turn that dial. You had to hit a button to run all the, through the channels.
You had the little button to push to have your favorite saved.
Yes.
You had like 5 of them.
This had a button that you just hit the seek and it would just find the stations, right? And I'm like, man, that was so nice.
So it was black and silver. Well,
that was just by coincidence. Dad found this truck at one of those, there's an dealer auction center off of 77 north of Statesville.
Yeah.
And he was a dealership owner and they found that truck. I loved this truck. Loved it. And when I graduated high school, he thought that it'd be a good idea to get me a Z71 full-size truck. Not a Z71, but a 1500 full-size Chevrolet extended cab. I come home from school near the end of my 12th grade, and it was a two-tone brown, no carpet farm truck, and it was awful.
Yeah.
And I was so upset because I just would have been happy keeping my little S10. And I used to take that two-tone brown truck and drive by the used car lot where my S10 was and just look at it.
You were mad that. Yeah. Now, when I was a kid, all the S10s, you wanted them dragging the ground.
Mine was a 4x4.
Okay.
Yeah.
So yours was up. Mm. See, when on the West Coast, you wanted them dragging the ground so they ripped the reflectors off going down the highway.
Yeah. It was a group. Yeah, they call them pebble pushers and all kinds of things around here. But I ended up getting me a lowrider single cab S10 pickup truck for a while. It had a big block it had a V8 in it, not a big block. Dad had a S10 pickup truck with a 454 big block in it.
No kidding.
Yeah, on the farm. It was fun.
Now, is that the same one? Is it true that he used to run into the little trailer, or when he was mad at you, or
no? When he was mad at me, I'll say he never ran into the trailer, but
now this trailer is where Dale used to live.
It's a double wide trailer across the street.
Where I took my wife on our first date.
Yes,
to one of the parties.
One of the parties there. One time we did have a party, and everybody's asleep on the floor. And he, there's 12 or so of my friends all sleeping in the floor of the living room, dining room, everywhere, right? He walked in there, opened the front door, and fired his 12-gauge shotgun out the front door to wake us all up. Yeah. Yeah, standing on the porch.
Still one of the most intimidating things I've ever done was walk up into his office with Hornaday for the first time. I walked up in there. And we had decided that we were not very good at golf and we wanted to shoot shotguns. So we walk up into his office and he's got his glasses on and he's got piles of paper all over his desk. And he you know how he was. He'd sit there like this and he'd look over his glasses. What do you two idiots want? And I'm like, well, nice to see you as well. I'm thinking in my mind, you would never say that. Yeah. And Hornaday says, well, we want to learn how to shoot guns. He said, well, shouldn't you guys be working on your race cars? And I had no clue what to say. Hornaday would banter back and forth with him. And finally, we got to the point. He's like, Ron, you go down and get the truck. Kevin, you come with me. And we walked back, and he had that little knife gun room with all the guns and everything in it. And that's where I got my first shotgun.
Really?
Yeah, he gave me a Remington shotgun, and I still have it today.
That's pretty cool.
That was, and he sent Danny. You remember Danny that used to work for Remington, the trick shooter?
Yes.
He sent Danny. He called him up and he said, "Hey, can you take these two morons out to learn how to shoot these guns? I don't need them shooting their foot off." So he was an intimidating dude. Well, I appreciate you taking the time. Yeah. Looking forward to everything that we get to do this weekend. I think it's going to be a lot of fun, and can't wait to see how it all goes. Yeah, I'm excited to get in the booth with you, bud, and hopefully we'll have a great night for the Cars Tour and a great weekend for NASCAR with the All-Star race. It's a big deal in Wilkesboro there. Back to work next week. Thanks for taking the time. Thank you, bud.